What is up, Ravens flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. James and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome in everyone to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my co-host James Haskell. In this episode, we will be discussing, we've identified 6 players that we feel have an opportunity to, not just an opportunity, but they have some urgency for some of these guys to put on a big show this upcoming Thursday for the Ravens' first preseason game. So we're going to talk about guys that are maybe on the bubble or that have some questions that need to be answered. But we're excited again too. We got 3 on offense, 3 on defense. But before we get started, hit the like button, click the notification bell, and of course, subscribe so we can keep you up to date on all your Ravens news. But Jimbo, the Ravens first preseason game is just 2 days away. They will be playing Thursday night. I know you're excited. I know the people are excited, but let's jump right into this. Who is where do you want to start, on the offensive side or the defensive side?
Yeah, let's start on the offensive side. And the reason I want to start on the offensive side is because you brought up a really good name when we were talking about this. Out of the backfield, one guy that for the first time in the history of his tenure with the Ravens, we were both impressed with, that was Justice Hill. I'm referring to the time we were out at practice. The way he looked, the way he was moving, we were thoroughly impressed. But he's on this list because he's fighting for a spot on this roster. And he needs to use this game to catapult himself up the depth chart and create a spot for himself on this roster in any way possible. So keep an eye on him is going to be crucial. What's your take on, like, what does he need to do? What do we need to see from Justice?
Yeah, sir. I think what he needs to show is that if need be, like, it's great to be the third running back, and then you can kind of have a bit of a niche role. You can have a role where you're only used primarily on special teams and then sprinkled in occasionally to run a route or something to that nature. But also, as the third back, you have to understand that you're 1 or 2 plays away from being the starter and from being a guy that is now relied upon to do a lot more than just play special teams and run an occasional route and do those things. So I think what Justice Hill has to show, not just in this preseason game, but in all of them, is that he can do anything that's needed. So he can run between the tackles for a bit if you need him to. He can be the primary ball carrier instead of just a scat back, like a lot of people kind of envision him being when he was drafted. I think he's got to show he can do more out of the backfield. You got to be able to block for your quarterback. If you're going to be in there in passing situations, you have to be able to pick up the blitz. And if you can't do it in the vanilla schemes you'll be seeing in the preseason, then you certainly aren't going to be able to pick up the blitzes when you're seeing exotic schemes in the regular season. So I think Justice Hill's got a lot to prove in this game. He's got a ton of depth ahead of him or around him. I don't know if ahead of him is the right word, but certainly around him, with a guy like Mike Davis entering his 8th or 9th year and has done a lot of big things in this league, showed that he can be a 3-down back. Corey Clement heading into his 6th or 7th year out of Wisconsin, a guy who's ultra impressive physically and has done a ton in his career already that you can actually look at game tape and see. And then, of course, Tyler Beatty, who was drafted this season and a virtual lock to make this roster because of that. He's got to stand out. Justice Hill has got to show he's more than just a special team standout.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree with you. I'm glad you brought up the blocking because I think that's what it is at the end of the day. He's got to be able to pick up on the blitz, but make plays in space is comes to my mind, because this is
make
what
a guy
it was
miss,
about.
right?
Yeah, this is what it was about with Justice Hill coming in, the side-to-side movement, the quick twitch, the dangers of the ball in space. So every opportunity he has with the ball in space, he needs to take advantage of, period. And so that'll be really interesting to see what he does there. So make sure to keep your eye on Justice Hill. Who's the next one we got on the docket, Glenn? Offensively, we'll stay on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, let's stick there. We've been seeing a lot of tweets and stuff coming out of practice recently, out of training camp recently. Certainly today was a ton of wide receivers that were either held out or expected to miss this upcoming preseason game. So Looks like yesterday Bailey Gaither left practice early. Today Slade Bolden exited early with the trainers. Devon Williams, the wide receiver, has missed consecutive practices. James Prochet did not practice today. So there's a ton of receivers that are either a little bit banged up or whatever the case is, they're not practicing. And so it leads you to believe, while we haven't heard right now from coach or anyone saying that, this guy or that guy isn't going to participate in the upcoming preseason, we got to imagine that they're going to be careful with some of these guys if they're dinged up. Duvernay just came back to practice. Bateman's missed a couple of practices. So we've identified a guy who has yet to miss any time, at least to our knowledge. And I think it's a big game for him. It's a big preseason for him. A guy who's been here now for a couple of years, is under a futures deal in the offseason and is now fighting for that coveted final roster spot in the wide receiver. That's Benjamin Victor. So, Jimbo, tell me what you've seen from Benjamin Victor and tell me what he needs to do in this upcoming preseason.
Yeah, so Ben, I feel like this year looks a bit more smooth than last year, a little bit more loose in his hips, in and out of his breaks as well. Looks better. But the thing about Ben, that I think the reason he stays around is because the body type that he has is something that the Ravens are lacking. And the other thing, too, if I'm not mistaken, he's not a big special teams contributor. So with all that said, what he needs to do is make contested catches. He needs to be given the opportunity to show he can make contested catches and do it. And then in addition to that, so not just the contested stuff like on the outside and things traditional people think of, but also demonstrate his awesome catch radius up the middle of the field. And so if he can do those two things, I think he solidifies himself as the head of the pack when it comes to that cohort of guys that are relatively unknown to the casual viewer of the Baltimore Ravens. I think those are the things that he needs to do. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he needs to continue to expand on what he's been doing in camp. We've seen him going up, getting the ball over the middle, making plays. We did see him get the ball knocked out of his hands, which, of course, he then jumped on. But Harbaugh didn't miss that and pointed it out in his post-game presser. So it's obvious they're looking at him. They're watching him, and there is a spot on this roster, no doubt, available. All the guys who we consider locks and guarantees are 6'1" and under, and most are well under that. I think Rashad Bateman is the clear tallest guy in that group of guys we consider locks, with James Prochet being relatively undersized, Devin Duvernay not a tall guy, and Tylan Wallace isn't either. So, like you said, a glaring weakness in that position is a big-bodied 50-50 winner, go get it, red zone producer, and Benjamin Victor hopefully can finally kind of stake his claim to that spot and be that guy. But I hope he gets the opportunity. Throw the ball up, quarterbacks. Let's let these guys, let's see what they can do. And I hope it's earlier rather than later. I'd like to see him doing it against some talent that might actually be playing on Sundays. Let's hope that he's not just making plays in the fourth quarter of the first preseason game against guys that'll likely be selling cars or doing something else of that nature. Okay. So, Ben Victor, that's a big one, right? So let's switch. Before we do our third and final offense, I'm going to switch to the defensive side of the ball and switch things up a little bit.
Really?
So, Jim, I'm going to switch it up. And then I'm going to come back. Because I think I don't want anyone who's only here to hear about offense to just check out early on this, Jimbo.
Fair enough.
Let's bounce to the defensive side of the ball. And tell me about a veteran that you're looking at as a guy that needs to show out.
Yeah, initially, when you think about the cornerback room, there's a lot of vets. There's, we got some young guys with 2 picks in Pepe and Armour Davis and things like that, and some more journeyman guys in Kevon Seymour and some other folks. But when you think of the cornerback room, you go, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters. But originally, when we signed Kyle Fuller, I considered him, and even until a few days ago, I considered him a lock on this roster. But I'm going to be honest with you, Glenn. What we saw in camp was what we saw with our eyes was relatively putrid. Both days. Saturday didn't look good. He got doo-dooed on a couple times. And Tuesday was not great. Now, maybe things change for Kyle Fuller when the pads come on. Both those times he didn't have the pads on.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think that Kyle Fuller is fighting for a spot here, Glenn. I think he's fighting for a spot. I don't think it's a lock that he's just our slot corner. No, I do think he can be, and he has the ability to be, but I don't think it's being given to him by any stretch of the imagination. And so I think what he needs to do is separate himself from the young guys by demonstrating his experience and technique. Mm-hmm. If he can do that and show a clear delineation between the young guys that have been here for a while and the young rookies, I think that helps reassure the coaches that, okay, Kyle's still got it. Like, we can still trust in him. He's a wily vet. He knows the ropes, and he's been a Pro Bowler and things like that. But he needs to show clear separation. I'm not saying he needs to have the greatest game of his life, but this is something that is going to be important for him. This preseason is crucial.
Yeah, and I think it's important for the whole Ravens secondary that he plays well, because first of all, he's got to show no mental lapses, right? In a game where you're going to have a vanilla game plan and all that stuff, you can't have any mental lapses as a veteran, at this many years into your career. So we can't see any of that. We also need to say that he's physically still got it in a game time, high pressure situation. Not, I guess this wouldn't be high pressure, but it's a lot more pressure than in training camp. So we need to see that he's still got it from a physical standpoint. And then we also need to see if he's better, like you said, than these young guys that are barking up a tree here. I mean, Jalen Armour-Davis, mature beyond his years, been ultra impressive. Pepe Williams seems to make a play every single training camp and is endearing himself with the coaching staff every single day. They love his competitive spirit. They love his fight. They talk about it. No one has a bigger heart than him on this team. So if you want to not just make the team, because it's a fairly decent likelihood he does. If you want to play Kyle Fuller, then you got to outplay these young guys who are absolutely hungry and gunning for playing time. So I think Kyle Fuller's a good one, because I guess while I think it's a very high likelihood he makes the team, it's certainly no lock, right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not a lock. And I think if he would have just performed at a more adequate level, he would certainly be a lock. But he's got to do it. He's got to put it together at the end of the day. So, all right, let's keep moving. Let's stay on the defensive side of the ball. We talked corner. Let's go right to, another good one that you brought up, Glenn, is at the middle linebacker position. And this is a guy that a lot of people have been very high on since his draft. He's real up and down and inconsistent and a lot of not fulfilling what people thought his potential was as a player for the Ravens. And that's Malik Harrison.
Yeah.
And man, the dude has all the physical gifts, almost too big sometimes it looks like for the middle linebacker position. But the reason he's on this list is because, think about this, Glenn. You got the guys in front. So you got PQ and you got Josh Bynes. Josh Bynes is clearly the starter, or else they wouldn't have brought him back. Yep. Like, it doesn't make sense. So if Malik Harrison had stepped in this role, Josh Bynes wouldn't be here. So Josh Bynes is right there with PQ starting. But then you think, oh, well, then you got Malik Harrison. But you got a lot of young guys there, and two guys that we both like in Ross out of Michigan and McLean out of Auburn.
Yep.
Auburn, right. That are both young, hungry guys, and have, when we were there, both of those guys made plays.
Yep.
And I didn't see a ton from Malik Harrison. So he's got a lot of guys similar to, like you said, with Kyle Fuller, that are pushing him. So my question to you, Glenn, is what can he do in this game to show out, to say, look, I'm still your guy behind Josh Bynes?
Oh, I think he's got to bring what the Ravens were hoping he was going to bring when they drafted him, and that's that downhill, physical, run stuffing. I mean, the guy is absolutely gigantic. When you look at him next to even the peers in his own linebacker room, he's a standout.
Looking.
Yeah, he's just huge. And you mentioned a bunch of guys that he has to compete with, but also Christian Welch is a guy who's been around. He's been around for a few years now. He's an obvious standout performer on special teams, whereas
Coaches
I'm not
love
sure.
him.
Yeah, and I'm not sure Malik Harrison provides the type of value to special teams, which if you're a guy who's not playing a ton on defense, then you better be a stud on special teams, or why else are they going to have you active on the game day roster? I don't see it being, just as this insurance policy in case no, you got to check some boxes. You got to be able to be versatile in your play style. And yeah, so I think Malik Harrison, this is a big year. I mean, do you want to be a starter in this league? Do you want to be, a guy that's more than just the occasional defensive player and mainly just being used on special teams. I don't think he wants to be that. So yeah, let's see what you got, Malik, this whole preseason. Let's see if you can beat out some of these young guys because they're hungry. And yeah, so let's see. Plus, he's had some off the field issues that I'm sure don't help his case for getting a second contract, certainly from the Ravens or even from a different team around the league. So yeah, big day, big game for Malik. And then let's switch back to the offense before we finish out.
Okay, now you're switching back.
That's right. Another name that we're going to be focused on and excited for, not whether or not he makes the roster. We know he'll make the team, but it's the importance. And I think the role he's stepping into and the hype surrounding him right now, that's the question. Can he live up to the hype? Can he step into the role expected? And that's Isaiah Likely, the tight end of the Coastal Carolina, who has been really, I think if you had to name one star of camp, I think he's the guy who gets the star labeled next to his name. What are you hoping Isaiah Likely shows you on Thursday, Jimbo?
I want to see him in a one-on-one scenario, in a man-to-man scenario, I guess I should say, outrun somebody. Just straight outrun them, because I want to see the speed put to test in live action with live bullets, right? And then I want to see that. You're asking me what I want to see. Now, this is wish list type stuff.
All right.
I want to see that. I want to see the catch radius. I want to see him blocking and how he does.
Okay.
You know what? I don't know if we'll see it. I want to see him lined up in the backfield like they used to do with Hayden Hurst. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Because we've talked about this, getting up in the second, third level, you have to be an athletic tight end. And so I would love to see him out there mowing over DBs and things like that. But the very last thing I would like to see is him dissecting his zone coverage and figuring out the right spot to be. And I just gave you a wish list of things in one game. But those are things I want to see from Isaiah Likely. What about you?
Yeah, so what I just want to see is him to continue to build his confidence. So I don't want to see any like concentration drops that might start. Yeah, like the easy make every catch that hits your hands. That's all I really am hoping for, because for a rookie, if you can have a big first preseason game, the amount of confidence you can get from that can really propel you into the season and really make a big difference, versus if you drop your first one, then you drop maybe a tough second one, then that can kind of snowball in the opposite direction. So to me, catch every ball thrown your way that's catchable, and continue to build the confidence, because right now, Jimbo, he's got to be flying high, dude. Like every time he turns on his phone, or I'm sure he's getting just bombarded with these positive messages and articles and notes being written about how he's just been a stud. So yeah, let's continue to see the growth and confidence continue for Isaiah Likely. And let's move back to the defensive side for the final guy.
Let's bring it home.
Yeah, Jimbo. This is another guy not fighting to make the roster, but I think he's fighting to silence some critics. Lately, we've been hearing a lot of criticism surrounding first-round selection Kyle Hamilton, of course, the safety out of Notre Dame, who fell to the Ravens at 14, I believe it was. And recently, some videos leaked, some video came out from the stadium training camp where he was burned by wide receiver Bailey Gaither, as well as some reports coming out of other days of camp that he struggled in some one-on-one battles. So why is Kyle Hamilton on this list for us?
Yeah, Jimbo? Kyle Hamilton to me is on this list for two reasons. One, because he needs to take advantage of this game in a couple ways. We need to figure out the definition of his role. I realize this will be fluid throughout the year, but what type of – is he going to be a situational guy? Is he going to be the true third guy? Is he going to take more reps than Clark? Is it going to be all even? Like, what will be the balance? And in what scenarios will Kyle Hamilton be deployed, right? I think that's what I want to see. But what he needs to do, it's interesting because I went – a little more specific with Isaiah Likely, and then I felt like you did a good job of being more general and just focusing on a psyche. Kyle just needs to get out there and take some reps and make some hits and feel confident because he has all the tools physically and mentally, right? He's athletically extremely gifted. So to me, it's just about reminding himself that he can do it, that he is who the Ravens think he is.
Yeah.
So that's all I really want to see from him. But I do want to see how the Ravens are going to use him. And it's going to be important for him to execute on the ways that they plan on using him in the season, starting in preseason game 1.
Yeah, I think that we may have to kind of Isaiah Likely and Kyle Hamilton, and really all these guys. I think we'll have to wait probably till the actual season to see exactly how they'll be used. But yeah, let's see if they do move. I'd love to see the Ravens move Kyle Hamilton around to a bunch of different positions to kind of show off his versatility and silence some of these ridiculous criticism he's getting over no pads, one-on-one, not just one-on-one, but like in the middle of the field one-on-ones, like not even where you have the sideline as your teammate, like in scenarios where he's almost set up to fail, and it's just kind of upsetting. But yeah, let's see him in a position where he can succeed. And let's see that versatility a little bit is what I'm hoping for out of the coaching staff as well as Kyle Hamilton. But of course, I think one thing can be said that we hope for all of these guys and every other Raven is that they come out of this game healthy.
Yep.
Because that is the first and foremost focus on this game, is leaving the game completely intact and healthy. So we'll certainly hope that for everyone involved, including the Tennessee Titans, I believe is who their opponent is.
Yep.
But let us know what you guys think. Is there any guys we've missed? Is there any other names that you're kind of looking forward to and think that this is a big, not just big game, but big preseason for them and their career? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and we'll talk soon.